This presentation is on the strange case of the sickle cell anemia. This, the normal dominant allele is symbolized here with a capital S, and it's white. The mutant recessive allele is indicated here by a smaller case s, which is red. The normal allele is just a normal red blood cell, nice and round and oval, easily flows through the small capillaries and veins. The mutant recessive allele is one that sickles or collapses under stress, usually oxygen, lack of oxygen stress, but there are other stressors. It kind of shapes into a quarter moon shape. We'll see that in a moment. So, with each individual having two alleles for blood type, or this type of blood, an SS person, capital S, is normal, non sickling blood like most of the population. There are some heterozygotes, person with normal blood allele and one that will sickle, but not enough sickling to be fatal. And then there's the individual, homozygous recessive, with all sickling blood cells. And condition is likely to be fatal before reproductive age is reached. When a sickled red blood cell is stressed, like I said many times, lack of oxygen, it collapses in on itself, forming sort of a quarter moon shape or a sickle. It's a tool that used to be used, a hand tool to cut wheat and long grass, short handled sickle. If enough blood cells sickle, you can see examples of sickling there on the left, some normal, some sickling. If on the right, then it shows you if enough of the blood cells have sickled, they can cause, because they don't flow and roll and tumble easily through the narrow capillaries, they can get caught up and cause a blockage. This blockage can cause like a mini stroke condition, and that will cause some of the cells in the organ to die. And if this continues and more cells die over time, you can have organ failure and then ultimately death. So this begs the question: why would not the recessive allele, the less allele, die out in the population over time? And as such, a lower homozygous recessive individual would likely die before they reach reproductive age and not pass on that allele. So it wouldn't be passed on, and slowly over time, as more and more of these genes, these alleles are die out of the population, they'd be gone. Well, this doesn't happen, as it turns out, because in this regions of the world, there's another environmental factor that's important as well. In the regions of the world where you have high predominance of sickle celling alleles, malaria is also very common, and that disease caused by a parasite kills many people as well. So most of the homozygous dominant big S individuals will die of malaria before they reach reproductive age. Most homozygous recessive individuals die of sickle cell anemia before they reach reproductive age, and that leaves only the heterozygote individuals likely to reach reproductive age. So, there's a final piece. The heterozygote individuals are protected from malaria in this manner. When a malaria parasite attacks a sickle allele type blood cell, it sickles. It's another stressor. Since there are not that many sickling at any given time, then the white blood cells can detect them and attack the sickled red blood cell because it's acting weird and abnormal. So the white blood cells do attack abnormal cells in the body, which, don't forget, that sickle cell is containing the parasite now because it attacked it, and that's why it's sickled. And then the white blood cell kills both of them, helping to eliminate malaria from that individual. So then if we take a look at the crosses that leave only heterozygotes likely to reproductive age, if the cross between two heterozygote parents, the only two which would likely reach reproductive age would be dominant recessive times a dominant recessive. We set the possible gene combinations on the Punnett square, and this would give you one parent would contribute a dominant to the top and a recessive to the top, and one parent would contribute a dominant to the side and a recessive to the side. And if we filled in that table, the offspring produced by this cross, these mating, these parents, would be a homozygous dominant, two heterozygotes, and a homozygous recessive, just like the Punnett square we would normally think of. But in this environment, the homozygous dominants would likely die of malaria before reaching reproductive age. Upper right hand box, or I'm sorry, upper left hand box. Lower right hand box, the homozygous recessives would likely die of sickle cell anemia before reproductive age, leaving the two heterozygotes likely to survive and pass their traits on. This means, due to the conditions, environmental conditions, and this mutated gene, the people in this region of the world, there's a approximately 50-50 gene ratio between normal alleles and the fatal allele, which is, very strange that a fatal allele would be that high. This is a great example of natural selection at work on a human population. Now, if some of the members of this population were transported to a region of the world where malaria is not an issue, then things change. Then the homozygous recessive individuals of this subpopulation in this transported region would still die of sickle cell anemia, but the homozygous dominant individuals, big S, would not die of malaria because it's not there. And the frequency of the lower little s mutant recessive allele would slowly die out in that subpopulation, as it has in the United States since slaves were brought in here centuries ago from areas of the world where malaria was an issue. But since it's not an issue here, the recessive allele is slowly decreasing.